was just nothing of any sort of like letting go, surrender, femininity, sensuality, being wanted, desire. Like there was none of that. My name's Brittini. It's like Brittini and Martini combined, Brittini. I am the creator, like Taylor said, of Big Pussy Energy, which is this movement of waking women up to actually the places that we've been taught to be the most afraid of and shamed of is where our power lies.
Hey, I'm Taylor Davis. Welcome to Wildly Satisfied. I hope you enjoy the show. All right, welcome everybody. We are here for a new series with Brittini Burton. I'm so excited. Mm-hmm. She's the owner of BPE, the founder, creator, and badass who created BPE. She's going to tell you a little bit about that in just a second. Yeah. I was lucky enough to meet her living in Austin, Texas. We have a lot of friends in common, which is...
That's very Austin.
It's very Austin. We're just... started floating each other's circles and we're like, hey. And then I also found out that you're from Michigan, which is...
Did we already go through this?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah. We're like, wait a minute. Yeah, it was interesting. I always feel like with Michigan people, I'm like... I can sense you.
Yeah.
Like there's just something about you. So,
Midwest.
Yeah, so excited. So I'm going to have Brittini introduce herself and then we're going to dive into a whole series around shame slaying, feminine embodiment, feminine leadership, and all of the things. So
yeah,
go ahead.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah. So yes, my name's Brittini. It's like Brittini and Martini combined, Brittini. I am the creator, like Taylor said, of Big Pussy Energy, which is this movement of waking women up to actually the places that we've been taught to be the most afraid of and shamed of is where our power lies. And most specifically in our sensuality. And we can go deeper into that as to why later, but through that, the tool that I use for a woman to connect her power is through sensual movement, twerking, and sisterhood. Because a lot of the times you'll hear like, oh, your power lies in the body. One, I don't feel like there's a lot of examples of how to access your body. There's a lot of examples of access your mind, but not the body. And two, for the feminine, there's really not any that I've come across with my life of ways to connect to your feminine power. There's ways to connect to your masculine power through yoga, meditation, working out, even dance classes are very masculine. Yeah. Especially ones that critique how your body is supposed to look, critique what time your body's supposed to move at. Yeah. And so embodiment is the actual feminine. And so BPE allows you to connect to yourself in ways that culturally you've never had before reflected back to you.
Yeah, I love that you brought up about the movement in terms of like what we know as dance classes and things like that, because even when I think about it, I love dance classes and it's always so fast. And it's like, okay, just jump in, but you got to get the steps. And they're like, and then just figure it out. And it's just so fast. And one thing that I know from going to your class and your own shame slaying event was like, there's this fun and this exuberance and this softness that comes to it. And so I just really, really adore that as part of your practice is like, yeah, there's fun and you can fuck around and find out. And like, you can do all these fun things, but there's also like, we can breathe, we can move, we can drop in.
What's really important to me is that there's community involvement. Like, I've been to so many classes, not even actual dance classes, like similar sensual embodiment classes of my own. Obviously, I go to experience someone else and be held in the medicine I teach. But the one thing they really miss out is like really creating a space where even if it's your first time, you feel seen and witnessed in who you are, and you see the woman next to you as well, so that for the next 90 minutes in class, like you actually are celebrating one another versus like you don't even know the person's name that's sitting next to you. And that's really important because I've gone to classes where I don't even know the instructor's name and I'm like meant to like fuck the floor, and I do, but it's very like forced.
It's true. It's really true.
You know, it's like I don't even know who you are, and you're teaching me to touch me, which is fine, but like there's a missing thing that I've experienced.
I often find that that's like a drop-in thing too. I mean, community, yes, obviously, but I noticed that like for yours, and I've gone to several others, and of course being in Austin and, you know, with my roommate and who she is and everything, the dropping in, the having the moment when you like open the circle for the class and we talk about really briefly how to connect to one another. It's one of the most beautiful things that I've seen.
Oh my God. Can we drop in together here?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Take a deep breath.
Before class, I always like to ask the question, say your name, and then why pussy brought you here today. And so I really want you, and you listening can also ask yourself, okay, why did pussy bring me here? Why did pussy bring me to this moment? Why am I listening to this podcast? And the answer is not, oh, because I found it. Or like, oh, because I know Taylor, that's why I'm here. Like, that's logic. That's the mind. Dropping into pussy. And if it's the first time you're like, Brittini, can't even say the word pussy. Like, if that's where you're at, celebrate you, babe. That's incredible. And I want you to like actually think like, okay, if you want me to see why pussy brought me here, let me just see what comes out. And so I'll go first. Okay, so my name's Brittini, and pussy brought me here because I am coming deeper into not just my own power, but recognizing that we are so fucking powerful, like each and every one of us. And I'm here to remind people of how fucking powerful you are. I'm really like waking up to that right now. And I'm like, oh my God.
Hold on, everybody.
Yeah. So pussy brought me here to just be a voice that reminds you that you get to choose how powerful you want to become.
I love that. Okay. My name's Taylor, obviously. And pussy brought me here because I'm in a time of visibility in my life in a way that I've never been visible before. And owning what I do and owning my power and owning my leadership, my feminine leadership in the way that it's meant for me. And for the first time ever, I'm like, I want to do that for others. I want to like, I've always wanted to, but I'm like, oh my God, I can now. And so to be able to have conversations like this and highlight people where it gets rid of the shame or it gets rid of the awkwardness, or it's like, oh my God, I've never experienced this before. And to give possibility, I'm in such a beautiful time in my life where I'm like, I want to give that to other people. I want to give that to the other people so much. It's like possibility, pleasure, practicality, let's fucking go.
Oh my God, bitch, did you do that on purpose? Triple P's?
It dropped in one day and I was like, yeah, okay, this is great.
And then pussy. Hey,
Lovely.
okay, well bragged, babe, well bragged.
Thank you. And for anyone who doesn't know, well bragged is Mama Gina, that right? Because I learned that from another person who learned it from Mama Gina.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so well bragged, bragging for the things that we can just brag for, whether they're good. I don't like good or bad.
No,
positive,
they're everything.
They're everything.
You can brag about going through a breakup and be like, I brag that I'm going through the hardest breakup of my life and I'm moving through it. Because bragging, you're taking ownership. And that makes what seems inherently bad, actually, you take your power back by bragging about it.
And I love that too, because I always said, like, growing up and everything, I was like, I am so radically honest about things. Like, I will own everything I've ever done because then nobody can use it against me.
Yeah.
It's like my superpower. It's like, yeah, let's go. Let's go, motherfucker. Like, let's do this. And so I just love it. So, okay, let's get into shame slaying.
Okay.
I really loved your event when you actually launched.
I didn't name that event that, and now I'm like, damn it, I need to name the next event Shame Slay. That's just so good.
It's so good. It was so good.
It's so fun.
I remember when I went, I was like, okay, because I had never fully like experienced any of your classes. I had seen it and people had told me about it. And then we were sitting there, and of course I have clients and friends that were on the panel. I'm just sitting there and I'm like, yeah.
Kimmy Inch was there.
Kimmy Inch was there. Rachel Gibler was there. I'm going to butcher her last name, but Amy
Batowski.
Batowski? Okay, Batowski. She was... I'm so sorry if you're listening, because I never wanted to butcher her name. And then the Libido Fairy, which was
Hannah.
so cool. Hannah, she's great. But yeah, let's get into shame slaying, because when you named that event, I was like, yes, because something I often talk about with like my clients and the people in my life is I'm like, go for whatever it is the fuck that you want to go for. Like, it does not matter. And a lot of people don't have that maybe language or permission, or there's just kind of right before they dive into the embodiment and the, oh my God, I'm going to go to BPE or I'm going to get into sensual dance or anything like that. There's like, but I don't know how to talk about it. There's this gap that I found. I know for me, when I first started on my journey, it was very awkward to talk about certain things. Like you said, some people can't even say the word pussy, right? And there's such shame around the language that we use, around how we move through our lives, around our body, everything. And so I want you to like dive into one, how this started for you in like your origin story, and then also like where like BPE came from.
Well, for me, that's almost kind of separate.
Okay.
because growing up, my mom taught me about sex really young. So I didn't have, and I also didn't grow up religious, which, which thank fuck, because that's where a lot of the shame, I first want to say shame is taught.
It is taught.
So shame is taught through conditioning. And so like, the reason why it's really difficult to say pussy is because we've been taught that that's a dirty word. That's taught.
Yeah. It's our private parts. It's
the no-no zone.
It's the no-no zone.
I had a call with Mama Gina today, and she talked about like what we all called our pussies when we were younger. And it's funny to me now looking back, I called my pussy pee-pee, but my brother's penis was also pee-pee. Like we both just had pee-pees.
Yeah, it's just it's not.
Yeah, it's just like okay. That's where like we don't have any languaging about our most powerful part of our body. Like the second you are birthed and you're a woman, there is not one word where anyone feels comfortable enough to say. So parents try their best and they make code words.
Yeah.
Like every single woman had a different word growing up for their pussy, and a lot of them didn't even have a word. And so that's inherently, you're already taught without verbally knowing that it's a shameful place because no one knows how to talk about it.
Yeah.
And you're a kid and you're like, it's just part of me.
Even as like a anatomy perspective, because a couple years ago, and this was well before I dove into like any of my feminine embodiment, I didn't even know what masculine feminine energy was.
Right.
I remember standing up and I was like 19, 20 years old, and my family is very open. Like we don't, sometimes my mom is like, my mom was a stripper.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed.
Like she was amazing. She was so freaking hot. And what's crazy is that like, while we didn't dive into each other's sex lives or anything like that, like it was like, yeah, okay, you know, if you're gonna go smoke or do anything, do it at the house. If you're gonna like, right? And we're standing there, and my dad starts talking, and he was like, well, you know, with the guys, you know, and I was like,
you know,
I was like, penis, Dad. The word is penis. If you can't say it, you shouldn't have one.
Oh my God.
And he's like, Taylor, and I was like, you're so weird, because we're so open about other things. And I'm like, it's an anatomy piece. Like when you're attaching an interesting story behind it and you're making it seem, it's your anatomy. It's your vulva. It's your vagina. It's your penis. And then, go back into language, because I love diving into the language as how we are already taught about shaming things before we even realize it.
Yeah, I mean, so even like there's a lot of kids that grew up with the word vagina, which is incorrect. The vagina is you can't even see your vagina, right? The only person that can really see your vagina is like the gynecologist when they open up with the claw.
The pap smear.
And they're like, yeah, the pap smear.
like, get in there.
That's the vagina. Like you can put your fingers inside, but like to visual, like
can't really see it.
That's so ixnay on that. I know parents in the 90s, like I'm a 90s baby, like they thought they were like the progressive kind if they call it vagina, but that's unfortunately wrong. And I don't know, like there's yoni, and that's like a lot of people just ask me, why don't you call it yoni? Yoni is like Sanskrit, which is like the first language. And honestly, the reason why I call it pussy and big pussy energy is because it makes you uncomfortable.
I love it.
And Mama Gina said something, I'm like in her world right now, so I'm going to quote it. I'm like a coach in one of her programs, so I'm like plugged in. But because she has a book called Pussy, and she was like, the word pussy highlights in you your relationship to your femininity. So if you're uncomfortable, that just illuminates the discomfort that you have with yourself. Like if you said vagina or yoni, I don't think that same mirror gets placed so like in front of you. But if you say the word pussy, that shouts something, or maybe it doesn't, and that just reflects your relationship to yourself.
It at least brings up the question of why.
Yeah.
Why are you uncomfortable with a word when it's such a big part of you? And so I always like to ask why. I'm like, why? Like, is there anything that you're not accepting about yourself? Is there anything like, choose whatever word that feels good for you, as long as it's not from a place of shame.
Yeah.
And so, no, I absolutely love that. So let's go back to your origin story though with that. So around where you started and why this means so much for you. You said growing up you were not in a religious household.
Yeah, no. So I didn't have that. But instead, I grew up with a single parent, and my dad never got married. And my whole life, I'm 30, I've never seen my mom in any romantic relationship. I've never seen a man like in my house where she embodied the feminine. I've never seen her interact sensually or feminine. And so there was a big gap in my whole life. Like to my knowledge, I've never seen my mom have sex with someone. Like there was just nothing of any sort of like letting go, surrender, femininity, sensuality, being wanted, desire. Like there was none of that. And so that's where I think my gap was. And while I was growing up and like getting older and starting to be sexual in my early 20s, I was nomadic. Before Austin, I moved in Austin 3 years ago, but from age 19 to 27, I was nomadic. I traveled the world. I was a solo traveler. I worked in positions that allowed me to travel. And so in that like nomadic era, like I was just constantly looking for this sense of aliveness that I felt only a man could bring to me. Like I grew up really only knowing the masculine through movies and
I resonate with that.
Like stories. And so I was truly looking for someone to save me. And that unfortunately is how a lot of us were raised to believe. And so I eventually was like, I really want to manifest a partner, and essentially I did. And unfortunately, my intuition was like, no, this isn't it. But I was bypassing myself and gaslighted myself and was like, no, you just don't know how to love because you never saw love growing up. So going against my body and myself. And then eventually, thank God, he's a great person. Like it wasn't a like hard relationship. It was just, we were not meant to be together.
Yeah.
And I was not happy, but I didn't recognize that. I moved to the UK to live with him. Like I was fully codependent, enmeshed. It was a full thing. I met him when I was traveling. So we were like, I was like, I don't know where else to go. I just want to live with you.
Yeah.
And so, after that relationship, I completely lost myself. I was very numb, probably was depressed, but just so disconnected. I didn't know. I was just so disconnected. I was 25. And so at the time I was like, I'm having my quarter life crisis, which I was.
Yeah. Just going through the motions.
I was just
and
like,
you're like,
what am I supposed to do with my life? And looking for him to figure that out with me.
Yeah.
And so eventually we ended. And in that moment, I was like, I need to look what I was looking for outside myself within. Thank fuck I was somewhat conscious enough to realize I was looking outside myself. And I started to point the finger in, and then intuitively I just was like, I need to do feminine energy. I have no idea how I got to that, but it was just pure intuition.
Yeah.
And what guided me first was books by David Data. So I was truly just learning the concept, like you said, of masculine and feminine. I was just like, what is it? Because I was so suppressed in my feminine. Like I said, my mom being a single parent was really embodying her unhealthy masculine most of the time.
Yeah.
And so just learning about femininity really woke me up. And then also because I was looking for pleasure outside myself through relationships, because sex was super draining for me. Sex is supposedly the most pleasurable thing a human can experience, but for me it was so fucking draining. It was so draining. I was like, this is horrible. I was so disconnected and very performative. The amount of times in college I used to fake orgasms just to get it over with. And then once I graduated from that, I would just be like, no, I'm fine. Like, just like, instead of faking it, I just like, no, I'm good.
Disconnect.
I'll do you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just like that my whole life. And then, so I just started self-pleasuring and figuring it out through crystal wand work, which was my first ever dildo, I brag, was a crystal wand.
Nice.
Thank you. And so
good for you.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. And then after like a few months of just being in this cave that I created with myself, of just all I did for these 5 months was like learn mentally what the feminine energy is, and then learn through my body. There was one night where I was sleeping and I was at my mom's house in my brother's old childhood bedroom that became the guest room. So like a small fucking room. And my mind or my intuition was like, dance in front of that mirror. And the mirror is like up above the wall. I had to climb on a chair. It's like a small mirror, like a square mirror. So like all I saw was like this much of my naked body.
Yeah.
And I just started dancing for myself in front of the mirror. And I'm not even kidding you, Taylor. That moment, there was like it was like everything that I was looking outside myself just looking at myself in the mirror, I realized it was all within me. The need of validation. It was like I was getting turned on and like seduced by myself. And I know, I was just like, it's all within me. It is fucking all within me. And that was the moment sensual embodiment was brought into my life by God. And then I just did it every single day for 4 years and kind of learned more about myself through that movement. And then moving to Austin, I've realized more, because Austin gives you this sense of permission. Yeah. I realized more people desire this. Because I know you go to Minx and Muse. I went to Minx and Muse and I was a client, which is a sensual embodiment pole studio. And I was a client and I was dancing one day and I was like, if I'm paying to be held in this space, other people would pay to be held in the space. Like it was like that studio gave me the permission that yes, this is important. And I get to do this.
That's amazing. I feel like for me, just movement, like in your body in general, it's so much more for the feminine than I see. I mean, yes, the masculine is like taught to move and it's taught to men. I'll say men in this context. Okay. The men are like just so taught to like move and keep pursuing and push forward and all these things. But I feel like as the feminine, especially as women right now, we're so in our head about everything. And I feel like something I talked to my roommate about recently, I was like overthinking and the rumination and catastrophizing and all the things where your brain just keeps going, anxiety. I know. And I like had this intuitive hit where I was like, actually it's energy that's moving up your body and then it's supposed to move out and like you're supposed to go move your body, but we're in such a world where we don't move at all, let alone sensual embodiment. And so it just goes up here and it gets stuck and it starts just like going round and round and round and round, and then that's where you have anxiety. But then you go and you move it out and it starts to quiet and you're not so much in your head because you come back down into your body. Yeah. And I just love that, like, when it comes to shaming yourself, when it comes to owning your feminine energy, there is such a power in movement. And I don't think that we're taught that enough, let alone sensual movement.
Yeah, I want to say 2 things about that. We also aren't taught to feel.
No.
And that's what movement has you do. Because if you are stuck in your mind, like now I'm so grateful that I am the queen of catastrophizing. I am the queen, like I'll own it, I'm the queen of anxiety. I'm the queen of ruminating. Like I've experienced that to such a detriment that I'm like, of course this is my path, is to teach people to get into their bodies because I have to all the time. Yeah. And what's uncomfortable though is that we have now so many things to distract us to not be in the feeling that it's a lot easier to not feel, which bottles everything up. And so when you take away all the things and you're just in your mind, your body also freezes. Like there's also like your nervous system does freeze or it fights and it's just like you're just holding on. And so movement can not be this intuitive, like sometimes in those spaces, like movement doesn't feel intuitive because your body is in complete shutdown. But it's like recognizing, okay, I'm in one of my fight, freeze, fawn responses and like allowing, like you said, movement to be the response to that shutdown.
I love that. Yeah. I wish more people knew to be able to move.
And then sensuality, bitch.
Yes.
Okay, this is my juice. This is so what BPE is. So BPE is like women just coming together online or in person, wearing lingerie and just feeling like they're in a space that can hold all of them, not just turn on, but grief and rage and however you want to show up, because the feminine is everything. It's not just this one thing. We're not love and light. We are all of it. And so when you come to BPE, like I said, either if you plug in online in your own space or if you come to Austin or if I come to you, like there's this sense of all of you is welcome, but also witnessed and celebrated. And sensual movement, because we've been taught that that's not for us. We've been taught that it is for someone else. Or we take that and we're like, that's not for me. Like that's for you, Brittini. That's not for me. And if you saw me when I was in high school or something, I was, girl, the fact that I'm doing this right now blows my goddamn mind.
Me too.
Blows my mind.
Yes.
Nope. I taught myself how to twerk on YouTube. Like, all the things, like, never felt like I was allowed to move the way I move.
Yeah.
And we have this, like, wound, the sisterhood wound, which is a huge thing in BPE, where because we have I'm saying we as like a very blanket statement, but it is this patriarchal societal structure. We as women have been taught that our sensuality is wrong. We have been taught that it's not for you, it's for your partner, which they want you to have a man, so it's for a man.
Yep.
And we've been taught that it's wrong and it's dirty. And so if you see another woman in her sensuality, if you see another woman embodied in her power, which I use sensuality and power interchangeably, you then, which is a natural response, will either want to push her down and make her wrong, so that the ego within you is like, well, I'm right because I've been taught that that's wrong, so you're wrong.
Yeah.
Which creates the separation. Or you look at her, instead of being inspired, we go into self-criticism or judgment and make ourselves small as we put someone else higher above us. And so in BPE, we celebrate one another because we witness that. We recognize that we're not just seeing another woman in her sensuality, we're seeing in her power, and you celebrate each other in it. No one's better or worse. I get inspired by the women in there all the time.
Yeah,
like, I'm just...
It's permission.
It's permission. Like, I
and celebration.
have never been a dancer.
Yeah.
I've never... It's fucking crazy that what I'm doing is what I'm doing. Let's just call it that. And like, I just get so inspired by other women in that class.
Me too.
And so it's just such a space of medicine.
I love that. I love that we're going to go deeper into this.
Yeah.
We have so much more on how we suppress the feminine as well as sensuality. I just saw you get so turned on. You're like, sensuality, bitch, let's go.
That's where we get juicy.
Yeah, so we're going to dive into that in the remaining episodes, and we will see you back next week.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this Wildly Satisfied production. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love it if you would share it with someone that you love, leave a review, or come tag us on social media at Wildly Satisfied.